understanding was that it was, well, codes instead of a certification system. And in doing the research, it seems to me like it's actually a certification system, a way of saying, yep, this is a green, build it, but not actually an alternative code which you can build to. And so that's where I want to start the discussion to sort of clarify, am I seeing this right? Does that sound about right?
Well, I've asked Joseph Lehman, the building official, to be here. It's my understanding we're not planning to be certified because they can pick elements of it.
Right, just
to, correct?
Yeah, go into just a little detail. I don't know how much information as far as early on. The study of Vancouver and Clark County, they had gotten together and analyzed all the different codes. And there were different codes that actually did different things. One was, the third-party verification. You had other elements that would actually have the jurisdiction to be the one doing it. So there's different ways to do it, but the point system is the option as far as that ICC 700. But the element that a lot of the building people liked was that there was a third-party verification where we would just be overseeing whatever they would want to achieve, whatever level they wanted, if they wanted that level.
Okay, so that is similar to what I'm discovering with this, because we have our building code so that buildings don't fall down and people don't electrocute themselves when they do home improvements and whatnot, and so they don't burn down because of shoddy wiring, etc. And so this is not that. This is most definitely not that, nor is it an alternative to our building code. Everything that they would do according to the ICC 700 would have to be in compliance with the existing codes that are on the books right now.
Correct.
Okay, so, all right, that was a big misunderstanding I had there because, well, I don't know how I got the misunderstanding, but I had it.
There just briefly, there probably are elements of the standard that might be alternatives to the prescriptions that are in the model code, in the model building code. So there are components of the standard that kind of gut and stuff alternatives to the building code, but it's not in and of itself a complete building code document, and it's a standard for alternatives to the code, or it shows a complete checklist for voluntary certification to the standard.
Right. Which brings me to the second part, which is that and I say this frequently, but there's nothing voluntary in government, so the big question comes in, when is this going to become mandatory? And do we have any sense on that? Have you heard, by any chance?
No sense whatsoever.
Okay.
My understanding is it's primarily voluntary.
Right. This document was promulgated by actually it was produced by the National Association of Home Builders, who is, I guess, a customer of the regulatory services. And they developed it, and then they brought it to the national code writing body and said, will you please accept this as your own standard? And so that's what ended up happening. So our local BIA had asked the building officials in the region to accept this standard as something that folks could use if they chose. I'm not aware of any effort at the state level in Washington to mandate, I don't remember anything from the last session, to mandate something, but that's not to say that at some future point there wouldn't be an advocacy group that might seek to require some level of certification.
Yeah, my understanding is the building industry is an advocate for this, in the fact that it's based on the customer requests that they have, and they would like to have a regional approach where all the building officials are going to use the same voluntary standard, and they all will be able to share the information that they learn about it, so it makes it more efficient and effective for getting building permits.
Just one more thing too. I mean, early on there was a lot of competition for all the green standards. You had LEED, you had all these different variations of a typical code. And what we found was after the analysis and after we really took it apart, we had to find that one code that would actually match up with the state mandated requirements to eliminate that conflict with those coming in, to kind of streamline things and make sure there aren't any unnecessary hardships with, requiring things that don't quite mesh, so.
Which state mandates are you referring to?
WAC 5150 and 51 through, 56, so that's where the,
Energy
just,
code.
yeah, all the different elements. And what happened was ICC, which is the actual, I guess, author of the document that the state has adopted, came out with the other document, the ICC 700. So they basically fit together with the least amount of, I guess, actually the most amount of fluidity to get things moving along, actually to bring in green construction and actually have a frame of reference rather than piecemealing this standard, that standard, and people really don't know what they have as far as what are they really achieving.
So did this come out of your office in the city of Vancouver? These standards with the county, like working on this together?
No, the standard came from the National Association of Home Builders. at the
I'm saying, was
national
this
level.
started, this ball
But
rolling though, out of your?
There was a grant that came from the Sustainability Office of the City of Vancouver
Okay.
and an office at Clark County. And the design of the grant was to identify where state building code and where state rules were barriers, or local rules were barriers to green building. And there were a number of examples where customers came to us, or to folks throughout the state, so it was looked at as a statewide pilot. Folks would come to the counter with an alternative to the state building code, and a building official like Joseph has the opportunity to make that approval. However, as you can imagine, when there wasn't a consistent set of adopted standards or a consistent perspective among the various jurisdictions, you had a lot of inconsistency, and so you'd come to one community and that alternative would be approved. You'd come to another community and it wouldn't be approved, or it'd be approved in a different way. And that was frustrating to that advocacy group within the building industry itself. So this grant was to identify those barriers and then recommend solutions to eliminating the barriers so that folks that wanted to do those things could do it. And just to give you an example of one that none of us could do anything about, if you want to harvest rainwater, it was against the rules at the state level. If you wanted to do that for whatever purposes that you would want. There's been a little bit of tweaking with the rule around that, out of the ecology, but that was one thing that was identified. There was some simple stuff like our plumbing code said, you have to do this, and folks wanted to do this other thing. And I thought, the plumbing code says you can't, it's a state code, so what could we do? Out of that project, there was a recommendation that to address that consistency issue, that really statewide, but the project was here in Clark County. Could all the building officials please get together and say that this is a standard that would be acceptable? And I think the BIA and its advocacy working through that certainly was a promoter of their own standard out of the National Association of Home Builders. The building officials liked it, as Joseph mentioned, because it's consistent with the state building code and WACs. So that was sort of the genesis of doing it, was to eliminate barriers in the code to alternatives that folks were voluntarily doing.